The training arena smelled like hot metal and sweat. Captain Hyun walked along the observation deck, watching the new soldiers practice their combat drills below. His boots made soft sounds on the metal floor as he moved. The arena was huge, big enough to hold 300 recruits at once. Today, only 50 remained from the original group. The rest had quit or been sent home with injuries. War was coming, and the Galactic Coalition needed fighters. They needed them fast. Hyun stopped at the railing and looked down. The Vrelians were doing well. They looked like giant insects with 4 arms and quick movements. Their shells could take a lot of damage, but Hyun had seen them panic under real fire. They were smart, but they scared easily. The Korthians were different. They looked like walking mountains, made of living stone. One of them could lift a training mech with bare hands, but they got tired too fast. After 10 minutes of hard fighting, they would slow down and become easy targets. Then there was the human. Day stood in the center of the combat ring, facing a training robot 3 times his size. His right arm was wrapped in a white medical cast that covered him from shoulder to fingertips. Bandages showed through his training shirt. He moved carefully, like every step caused pain. He probably should not have been there at all. "Sir, that human is back again," said Lieutenant Baum, walking up beside Hyun. She was a tall woman with sharp eyes. She had been training soldiers for 5 years and thought she had seen everything, until she met Day. "I can see that," Hyun replied. "His arm was shattered 3 days ago. The medical report said he needed at least 2 weeks of rest, maybe more." Hyun nodded. He had read the report. He had read all of them. In just 7 days of basic training, the human named Day had broken his right arm, cracked 3 ribs, and snapped his collarbone. Any other species would have been sent home in disgrace. Some would have died from the first injury alone. But here was Day, fighting a robot with 1 good arm and a body held together by medical tape. The robot swung a massive fist. Day rolled under it, grunting with pain as his broken ribs shifted. He came up behind the robot and kicked at its knee joint. The robot turned faster than expected and backhanded him across the arena. Day flew through the air and hit the wall with a sound that made everyone watching wince. He slid down and lay still for a moment. "Medical team to ring 4, Baum said into her communicator, already moving toward the stairs. But Day was getting up. Slowly, painfully, he pushed himself to his feet. Blood ran from his nose. He wiped it away with his good hand and walked back toward the robot. "He is going to get himself killed," Baum said. "Maybe," Hyun said quietly. "Or maybe he is something we have not seen before." The robot came at Day again. This time, Day was ready. He could not match the robot's strength or speed, but he did not need to. He moved like someone who knew pain was coming and did not care. He let the robot hit him in places that would hurt, but not kill. In exchange, he found the weak points, the knee again, the elbow joint, the neck servo. When the robot finally shut down, Day was still standing, barely, but standing. The medical team rushed in. Dr. Tikval, a Vrelian who ran the medical bay, clicked his mandibles in distress as he scanned Day with his instruments. 4 new fractures, Tikval said, his voice high and worried. "Hairline cracks in the ulna, stress fracture in the left ankle. The ribs are worse. This is impossible. He should be unconscious from pain." "How do you feel, soldier?" Hyun asked, coming down to the arena floor. Day looked at him. His face was calm despite the blood and bruises. His dark eyes showed nothing. No fear, no pride. Just a quiet acceptance of what was. "Fine, sir," Day said. His voice was steady. "You are not fine," Tikval clicked. "No species recovers from this kind of damage so quickly. Your bones are breaking down. You need to stop before permanent damage occurs." "I am fine," Day repeated. Hyun studied the human. He had commanded soldiers from 20 different species. He had seen bravery and stupidity and everything in between. This was something else. This was not a soldier trying to prove himself. This was a soldier who simply did not know how to quit. "Soldier Day, you are dismissed from training," Hyun said. "Report to the medical bay for treatment. Return when you are healed." "Sir, I can continue." That was an order. Day stood there for a moment. Then he nodded once. "Yes, sir." But 3 days later, he was back in the arena. His injuries had not healed. The medical report said they should not have healed. But Day trained anyway. He fought the robots. He ran the obstacle courses. He practiced weapons drills with one hand while the other hung useless in its cast. Bomb pulled Hyun aside one evening. "Sir, we need to force him out. He is going to hurt himself so badly that even human medicine cannot fix him." "I have tried," Hyun said. "I have ordered him to rest. The medical staff has ordered him to rest. He signs the discharge papers and shows up the next morning anyway. Then we discharge him permanently." Hyun watched Day through the observation window. The human was practicing hand-to-hand combat with a Korthian twice his size. The Korthian was being gentle, but Day treated it like a real fight. He took hits that would have killed smaller species. He got back up every time. "No," Hyun said finally. "We need soldiers like him. When the Drexian Empire arrives, we will need people who do not break, or who break and keep fighting anyway." "He has broken 7 times already," Bomb said. 7 times in 1 month. "Yes," Hyun agreed. "And he is still here." That night, Hyun reviewed Day's file. The human came from a mining colony on the edge of Earth's territory. He had no military training before joining, no special skills. His test scores were average. His physical strength was below average for a human. There was nothing remarkable about him on paper, but there was something remarkable about him in person. The file included a note from the recruiting officer. It said, "Applicant asked only one question during interview. How soon can I fight? When told training would take 6 months, applicant asked if there was a faster way. Determination level, exceptional." Hyun closed the file and looked out at the training arena. Empty now except for cleaning robots. Tomorrow, Day would be back. He would train with his broken body. He would take more damage. And he would call it fine. Maybe, Hyun thought, that was exactly what the coalition needed. Someone who was too stubborn to know when they were beaten. The war was coming, and when it arrived, men like Day would be the only thing standing between humanity and extinction. The war came faster than anyone expected. The Drexian Empire had been quiet for months, building their forces in secret. When they finally attacked, they hit hard and fast. The coalition's defensive line at the Helix Nebula broke in less than a day. Captain Hyun's unit received their orders at 0400 hours. They were to hold supply station Juno 7 until reinforcements could arrive. The station was critical. It fed 3 entire sectors with fuel, ammunition, and medical supplies. If it fell, thousands of coalition soldiers would be stranded without support. Day stood with the rest of the unit in the transport bay, checking his rifle. His injuries from training had mostly healed, though his right arm still could not straighten completely. The doctors had cleared him for combat duty, but they had also warned him that one more serious injury might cripple him permanently. He had nodded and signed the deployment papers without reading them. "Nervous?" asked Wu, a heavy weapons specialist standing beside him. Wu was built like a barrel, with thick arms and an easy smile. He carried a plasma cannon that weighed more than most soldiers. "No," Day said simply. "Good, me neither." Wu was lying, but Day did not call him on it. Everyone was nervous before their first real battle. That was normal. That was human. The transport shook as they entered Juno 7's docking bay. The station was already under attack. Explosions lit up the viewing ports. Alarms screamed through the corridors. "Move! Move! Move!" Lieutenant Bomb shouted as the doors opened. The unit poured out into chaos. Drexian soldiers were everywhere. They looked like nightmares made real. evolved for war on high-gravity death worlds. They stood 3 meters tall with thick armor plating that grew from their own bodies. Their weapons fired superheated plasma that could melt through steel. The first hour was hell. Half of Hyun's company died in the initial fighting. The Drexians pushed forward like a wall of death, unstoppable and merciless. Day found cover behind a cargo container and started firing. His rifle was standard issue, nothing special, but he used it well. He picked his targets carefully. Aimed for the joints in their armor where the plating was thinner, made every shot count. A plasma bolt screamed past his head, so close he felt his hair singe. He rolled left, came up firing, and dropped the Drexian shooter. Then another bolt hit him square in the shoulder. The pain was immediate and terrible. The plasma burned through his armor and melted the bone beneath. Day fell, his rifle clattering away. His shoulder was gone, just gone, vaporized. That was his 8th break, though break was too kind a word for what had happened. He lay there for maybe 3 seconds. Then he pulled a medical injector from his belt with his left hand and stabbed it into his thigh. Painkillers and combat drugs flooded his system. The pain became distant, like it was happening to someone else. Day picked up his rifle with his left hand and kept fighting. "Day is hit!" someone shouted over the communication channel. "I am fine," Day said, his voice tight but steady. He shot a Drexian coming through a doorway. Then another. Communications Officer Na watched from the command post, her screen showing the vital signs of every soldier in the battle. Day's readings made her feel sick. His heart rate was too high. His blood pressure was dropping. Half his body was showing as critical damage. "Sir, we need to evacuate Day," she said to Captain Hyun. "His injuries are—" "I can see his injuries, officer," Hyun said. His voice was calm, but his hands gripped the railing hard enough to turn white. "What is his position?" "Corridor 12. He is holding the left flank by himself." Hyun looked at the tactical display. Corridor 12 was a choke point. If the Drexians broke through there, they would have a straight line to the ammunition depot. If they reached the depot, the whole station would explode. "Can anyone support him?" "No, sir. Everyone else is pinned down." Hyun watched Day's icon on the display. It did not move. It just held position, fighting alone. The battle raged for another hour. A Drexian blade caught Day across the leg during close combat. The bone snapped with a sound like a gunshot. That was break number 9. He fell against the wall, tied a tourniquet above the wound with shaking hands, and kept firing from the ground. An explosion went off near him when a grenade hit the ceiling. Shrapnel tore through his side and threw him backward into a support beam. 3 ribs shattered. That was breaks 10, 11, and 12. His jaw cracked against the metal. Break 13. He could not speak anymore, could barely breathe, but his left hand still worked. So he kept shooting. Wu fought his way to Day's position 20 minutes later. He found the human collapsed behind a pile of dead Drexians, rifle empty, covered in blood. "No, no, no," Wu said, dropping beside him. "Day, can you hear me?" Day's eyes opened slowly. He tried to speak but could not. His jaw was broken. Instead, he pointed down the corridor with his good hand. Pointed toward the ammunition depot. "The depot?" Wu asked. "You want me to secure it?" Day shook his head. Pointed at himself, then at the depot. "You cannot walk. You can barely move." Day grabbed Wu's arm. His grip was weak but insistent. He pointed again. "You want to go there yourself?" Wu stared at him. "Why?" Day pulled out a datapad from his belt and typed with one finger. The letters appeared slowly. Defensive turrets. Offline. Can reset. The turrets? Wu looked down the corridor. The ammunition depot had an automated defense system. 4 turrets that could tear through dozens of Drexians. But the explosion must have knocked them offline. If someone could reach the control panel and reset them, the turrets would activate and hold the depot automatically. "I will go," Wu said. "You stay here." Day shook his head. Typed again. "You need it here." "I go." "You cannot even stand." Day looked at him with calm, dark eyes. Then he put his hand on the wall and pulled himself up. It took him 3 tries. His leg would not hold weight. His breathing was wet and labored from the broken ribs. But he stood. He typed one more word. Fine. Then he started dragging himself down the corridor. Wu watched him go, this broken human who refused to stay down. Then Wu returned to his position and kept fighting. It took Day 20 minutes to cover the 100 meters to the depot. He crawled part of the way when his leg gave out. Pulled himself forward with his one good arm when he could not crawl. Left a trail of blood behind him. Drexians found him twice. Both times he killed them at point-blank range with his sidearm. When he reached the control panel, his vision was starting to go dark at the edges. Blood loss. Shock. His body was shutting down. He had minutes at most. Day pulled himself up to the panel and started the reset sequence. His fingers fumbled over the controls. 1, 2, 3, 4. All 4 turrets came online. The guns spun to life and started firing. The Drexians in the corridor died before they knew what was happening. The turrets would hold the depot now. The station was safe. Day collapsed to the floor. He could not feel his legs anymore. Could not feel much of anything. That was probably better. He closed his eyes and waited. The reinforcements arrived 4 hours later. Coalition Marines swept through the station, pushing the remaining Drexians back. They found Day unconscious beside the control panel, his body destroyed but still breathing. In the medical ship, Dr. Tikoval worked on him for 6 hours straight. Other doctors came to help. They had never seen anything like it. 13 breaks, massive blood loss, organ damage. He should have been dead 5 times over, but the human heart kept beating. When Day finally woke 3 days later, Captain Hyun was sitting beside his bed. The captain looked older now, tired. The battle had cost them 47 soldiers, but the station had held. Thousands of lives had been saved. "How do you feel?" Hyun asked quietly. Day's jaw was wired shut. He could not speak. So he reached for a datapad on the medical table. His hand shook as he typed. One word appeared on the screen. Fine. Hyun looked at that word for a long time. Then he smiled, just a little. "Yes," he said. "I suppose you are." Stories spread fast in the military, especially stories about the soldier who would not die. They called him different names depending on who was telling the story. The Vrelians called him the Enduring One. The Korthians called him Stone That Walks, because even when broken, he kept moving forward. The humans had their own name for him. Simple and direct. Ironside. Day did not care about the names. He spent 6 weeks recovering from Juno 7, then returned to duty. The coalition promoted him to sergeant and gave him a training squad. They thought maybe he could teach other soldiers what he knew about survival. His new squad had 20 recruits. Most were human, but there were a few Vrelians and one young Korthian who wanted to prove himself. They stood at attention in the training yard, watching their new instructor walk toward them. Day moved with a limp now. His right leg did not bend quite right anymore. His shoulder was rebuilt with synthetic parts that did not match his skin tone. Scars covered his arms and face. He looked like someone who had been through a war, because he had. "I am Sergeant Day," he said to the squad. His voice was quiet, but everyone heard him. "I will train you for combat. Some of you will not finish training. That is acceptable. Better to quit here than to die out there." One recruit raised his hand. It was Ari, a pilot from Busan Station who had volunteered for ground forces. She was small and quick, with sharp eyes that missed nothing. "Yes," Day said. "Sergeant, is it true you were broken 13 times in one battle?" "Yes." The squad whispered to each other. Ari continued. "Does it still hurt?" Day looked at her for a long moment. Other instructors would have told her the question was inappropriate, would have said that pain was private and not for discussion. But Day was not other instructors. "Yes," he said simply. "Every day. Then why do you keep going? Because someone has to. He turned to the rest of the squad. War is not about being unbreakable. It is about getting broken and deciding what to do next. Today, we start learning how to make that decision. The training was hard. Day did not make it easier because of his own injuries. If anything, he pushed harder. He showed them how to fight when exhausted, how to think when in pain, how to keep moving when every part of their body wanted to stop. Wu joined the squad as an assistant instructor. He taught weapons and tactics. He also watched Day carefully, noticing how the sergeant would pause sometimes and grip his leg when he thought no one was looking. How he took painkillers every 4 hours like clockwork. "You should be on medical leave," Wu said one evening after the recruits had gone. "I am fine," Day replied. "That is what you always say." "Because it is always true." Wu sighed. He had learned that arguing with Day was pointless. The man had decided what he was going to do, and nothing would change his mind. 3 months into training, new orders came. The Drexian Empire had launched an offensive against the agricultural worlds in Theta Sector. One planet, Greenhold, was under siege. Thousands of civilian families were trapped there, unable to evacuate because Drexian forces controlled all the spaceports. The coalition needed a team to break through the siege lines and evacuate the civilians. It was a suicide mission, high risk, low chance of success. They asked for volunteers. Day volunteered immediately. So did Wu, and Ari, and half the training squad. Captain Hyun, now promoted to major, tried to talk Day out of it. "You have done enough," Hyun said in his office. "Let someone else take this one." "I am the best person for this mission," Day replied. "You can barely walk without pain." "I can walk. That is what matters." Hyun studied his friend. They had been through a lot together. Hyun knew that tone in Day's voice. The mission was going to happen with or without approval. "Fine," Hyun said finally, "but take a full medical team with you. And Day, try not to get broken this time." "I will try." They both knew he would not succeed. The mission went wrong from the start. Their dropship was hit by anti-aircraft fire 3 minutes after entering atmosphere. The pilot fought to keep control, but they were going down fast. "Brace for impact!" the pilot shouted. The ship hit the ground hard. Day was thrown against the wall despite his harness. His ankle twisted under him at an impossible angle. He heard the snap and felt the sharp pain shoot up his leg. Break number 14. But there was no time to think about it. The ship was on fire. They had to get out. "Everyone move!" Day shouted, releasing his harness. His ankle screamed when he put weight on it, but he pushed the pain away. He helped the other soldiers out of the ship, counted heads, made sure everyone was alive. They had crashed 3 kilometers from the evacuation point. 3 kilometers through enemy territory with a broken ankle. Wu pulled out a medical kit. "Let me splint that." "No time," Day said. "Make time. You cannot walk on it like that." Day looked at the burning ship, then at the horizon where Drexian patrols would be coming soon. "Do it fast!" Wu worked quickly, fashioning a splint from debris and medical tape. It would not hold for long, but it might get Day through the mission. Might. They moved out, staying low and quiet. Ari took point as scout. She moved through the ruins like a shadow, alerting them to Drexian positions before they could be spotted. The first patrol found them anyway. 6 Drexians against a squad of 12 coalition soldiers. The fight was brutal and fast. Day took a rifle butt to the face when he got too close to one of them. His orbital socket shattered. Break number 15. His vision blurred on the left side, but he kept fighting. The Drexians died, but not before killing 2 of the squad. 10 soldiers left now. They pushed forward. Every step was agony for Day. His ankle was swelling inside the splint. His face throbbed where the bone was broken. But the civilians were still ahead, still waiting for rescue. The second patrol was larger. They had to hide in a collapsed building while 20 Drexians marched past. Day held his breath, ignoring the pain signals his body was screaming at him. One of the younger soldiers started to panic. Day put a hand on his shoulder and shook his head slowly. Be still. Be quiet. Survive. The patrol passed. On the second day, they reached the underground shelter where the civilians were hiding. 847 people, packed into a space meant for 300. Children crying, adults with hollow eyes. They had been trapped for 2 weeks, eating through their supplies, wondering if help would ever come. "We are here to get you out," Day told them. "Stay calm and stay together." But there was a problem. The shelter's main door was locked from the outside by a Drexian security system. Someone needed to override it manually from the contaminated control room. The room was filled with poison gas left behind by a Drexian weapon. Anyone who went in would have maybe 5 minutes before the toxin killed them. "I will do it," Day said. "No," Ari protested. "Let me. I am smaller. I can move faster." "You are faster. That is why I need you getting these people to the extraction point." Day looked at Wu. "I need you to make sure everyone gets out. All of them. Count them when they leave." "Day, that is an order." Day took a breathing mask from the medical supplies. It would help, but not much. Not against this kind of poison. He sealed it over his face and entered the control room. The gas was thick and yellow. It burned even through the mask. Day felt it in his throat, his lungs, his blood. The pain was different this time, not sharp like breaking bones. This was deep and spreading, like fire in his chest. He found the control panel and started working. His hands shook. The screen blurred in and out of focus. He could feel his lungs trying to expand, trying to find clean air that was not there. His sternum cracked under the pressure. Break 16. But his fingers kept moving over the controls. 3 minutes. 4. The lock disengaged. The door opened. Fresh air rushed into the shelter. Day collapsed. Wu found him and dragged him out. His lips were blue. His breathing came in short, painful gasps. Hai, the medical officer, immediately started treatment. Counteragents, synthetic blood, oxygen. "Stay with me," she said, working frantically. "Do not die on me, Sergeant." Day's eyes flickered open. Through the oxygen mask, he tried to speak. His lips moved. Hai leaned close to hear. "Fine," he whispered. But this time, nobody believed him. They got the civilians out. All 847 of them. The coalition ships arrived just as Drexian reinforcements closed in. Everyone made it off-planet, including Day, though just barely. In the medical ship, as doctors worked to save his life, Ari sat outside the operating room. She was crying. She had never cried during combat, but now the tears would not stop. Wu sat beside her. "He will make it," he said. "He always does." "How many times can one person get broken?" Ari asked. "How many times before there is nothing left to put back together?" Wu did not have an answer for that. Inside the operating room, the doctors fought for 6 hours. When they finally came out, they looked exhausted. "He will live," the lead surgeon said. "But the damage to his lungs is permanent, and his body has been through too much. One more major injury might kill him." "One more," they said, as if Day would let that stop him. 6 months. That was how long Day spent in recovery. 6 months of surgeries and treatments and physical therapy. The toxin from Greenhold had damaged his lungs badly. He could not breathe like he used to. Walking upstairs made him gasp for air. Running was nearly impossible. The medical scans showed his body was held together by synthetic parts and determination. His skeleton looked like a map of old breaks, 16 in total, all healed but never quite right. The doctors told him he was lucky to be alive. They also told him his fighting days were over. Major Hyun came to visit him in the hospital. He brought a formal letter from Coalition Command. It was an honorable discharge with full benefits, a pension, a medal for extraordinary service, everything a soldier could want when their time was done. "You have earned this," Hyun said, placing the letter on the table beside Dae's bed. "More than earned it. You can rest now." Dae looked at the letter but did not touch it. Outside his window, he could see the military base, soldiers training, ships preparing for deployment, the war continuing without him. "The final offensive is coming," Dae said, "against the Drexian homeworld. Yes, in 3 months. I want to be part of it." Hyun had expected this. Of course he had. This was Dae, the man who did not know how to quit. "Your medical profile says you are not fit for combat," Hyun said gently. "Your lungs cannot handle the stress. One major injury could kill you. Could, not will." "Dae, listen to yourself. You can barely climb stairs. How will you fight in a battle?" Dae turned to look at his friend. His eyes were calm and clear. "The same way I always have." Hyun sat down heavily. He was tired. They were all tired. 3 years of war had worn everyone down. But Dae seemed immune to exhaustion in a way that others were not. Or maybe he just hid it better. "Why?" Hyun asked. "Why do you keep doing this to yourself?" Dae was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "When I was a boy, my father worked in the mines. There was an accident, cave-in, 20 men trapped. My father was one of them. The rescue team said it was too dangerous to go in, that the whole mine might collapse, that they should wait. But they did not wait. My uncle did not wait. He went in alone. He dug for 3 days straight. His hands bled. His back broke from lifting rocks. But he pulled those men out, all 20 of them, including my father. Your uncle was a brave man. My uncle was a dead man after that. His back never healed right. He could not work, could not walk without pain. He died young from complications." Dae looked at Hyun. "But those 20 miners lived. They had children, grandchildren, all because my uncle decided their lives were worth his body. And you think your body is worth this war? I think the people behind me are worth fighting for, even if it costs everything." Hyun looked at his friend and saw something he had seen from the very beginning. Dae was not brave. Brave implied a choice, a moment of courage. Dae was something else entirely. He was inevitable, like gravity or time. He would move forward no matter what stood in his way. "I cannot officially clear you for combat," Hyun said finally, "but I also cannot stop you from volunteering." Dae smiled slightly. "Thank you." "Do not thank me. I am probably sending you to your death. We are all going to our deaths. I am just taking a more direct route." 3 months later, the Coalition fleet gathered for the final assault on Drexus Prime. It was the largest military operation in history. 10,000 ships, 2 million soldiers. The entire might of the Galactic Coalition focused on ending the war. Dae stood in the transport bay with his squad. Ari was there, now a full combat soldier. Wu with his heavy weapons. A dozen others who had trained under Dae and refused to fight without him. They knew what kind of mission this would be. Suicide rates were estimated at 60%. They volunteered anyway. "Is everyone clear on the objective?" Dae asked. His voice was quieter now, raspier from the lung damage, but his squad leaned in to listen. "Reach the command citadel," Ari said. "Plant the beacon. Get out." "Simple," Wu added with a grim smile. "Except for the 10,000 Drexian Imperial Guards between us and the citadel." "Except for that," Dae agreed. The transport shook as they entered the atmosphere. Drexus Prime was a fortress world. Every building was reinforced. Every street was a kill zone. The Drexians were defending their home, and they would fight to the last soldier. The doors opened, and the squad charged into hell. The streets of the Drexian capital were chaos, fire and smoke everywhere, buildings collapsing. The sound of weapons fire never stopped. It was like being inside a thunderstorm made of death. Day's squad pushed forward. They moved building to building, taking casualties but gaining ground. The coalition battle plan was simple. Overwhelm the defenders with numbers, accept the losses, win through attrition. It was brutal. It was ugly, but it was working. They were 3 blocks from the Citadel when the orbital strike hit. A coalition ship above them had been damaged, and its weapons misfired. The plasma beam meant for enemy positions hit a skyscraper beside Day's squad instead. The building came down. Day saw Ari in the path of falling debris. He did not think. He just moved, threw himself at her, shoved her clear. The concrete beam hit him across the back. The weight was impossible. His spine folded. He heard the crack and felt the instant numbness spread through his legs. Break number 17. The world went quiet. Or maybe he just stopped hearing. He could see soldiers running, see mouths moving. But the sound was gone. There was only the feeling of being pinned under impossible weight and knowing his body had finally reached its limit. Wu and 3 others lifted the beam off him. Ari was crying, screaming something. Medics appeared with a stretcher. "We need to get him out of here," the medic shouted. "No," Day said. His voice was calm. Too calm. The voice of someone who knew what came next. "The mission." "You cannot move your legs," Ari was sobbing now. "We are evacuating you." "Drexian reinforcements are coming," Dea said. He could feel it. Could sense the battle shifting. "This position is the choke point. If they take it, the assault fails. Someone has to hold it." "Then we all hold it together," Wu said. Day shook his head. "You need to complete the mission, get to the Citadel, plant the beacon, that is the objective." "We are not leaving you," Ari shouted. Day looked at her, at all of them. His squad, his soldiers. He had trained them to be strong, to endure. Now he needed them to be something harder. He needed them to leave him behind. "That is an order, Private." The words were like a physical blow. Ari stumbled back, her face twisted with pain and anger. "Sir, complete the mission." Day's voice was firm despite everything. "That is all that matters now." Wu knelt beside him. "Sergeant." 4 hours, Day said. "I can hold this position for 4 hours. That will give you time to reach the Citadel and get clear." "How?" Wu asked quietly. "You cannot move." Day pulled himself to a sitting position against the rubble. Every movement was agony, but his upper body still worked. His arms still worked. He picked up his rifle and checked the magazine. "I do not need to move," he said. "I just need to shoot." There was nothing else to say. The mission came first. It always did. Wu stood and gathered the squad. "Let us go," he said roughly. "We have a beacon to plant." They left. Ari looked back once, tears streaming down her face. Day nodded to her. It was okay. This was what soldiers did. They held the line so others could advance. He watched them disappear into the smoke and fire. Then he checked his ammunition. 17 magazines. 2 grenades. 1 sidearm. It would have to be enough. The Drexian reinforcements came 20 minutes later, 200 strong, moving to retake the position and cut off the coalition advance. Day started shooting. He could not move, could not dodge, could not retreat. All he could do was sit with his back against the rubble and fire, pick targets, drop them, move to the next one. The Drexians realized quickly that there was only one soldier holding the position. They charged, thinking it would be easy. They were wrong. Day fought like he had been trained to fight, like he had trained others to fight. Not with hope of survival, but with the simple determination to complete the mission. He used his ammunition efficiently, made every shot matter. When the Drexians got close, he used the grenades. When they got closer still, he used his sidearm. When his ammunition finally ran out, he used his knife. When his knife broke, He used his hands. 4 hours. He held that position for 4 hours exactly. By the time coalition reinforcements finally arrived, he was unconscious, surrounded by bodies, his back broken but his heart still beating. They rushed him to the medical ship. The battle for Drexus Prime was ending. The coalition had won. The Drexian Empire was surrendering. After 3 years of war, it was finally over. In the medical bay, surgeons worked desperately to save Day's life. Major Hyun sat outside the operating room, just like he had done so many times before. This time felt different, though. This time felt final. The surgery took 11 hours, 3 different surgical teams working in shifts. They had to stabilize his spine, repair internal bleeding, and somehow keep his failing lungs working through it all. The doctors did not think he would make it. They had thought that before, of course. But this time was different. This time, Day's body had nothing left to give. Major Hyun sat in the waiting area, watching other wounded soldiers being brought in. The war was over. They had won. But the cost had been terrible. Thousands dead. Tens of thousands injured. And for what? So the galaxy could go back to the way it was before? He wondered if Day thought it was worth it. The surgeon finally came out looking exhausted. "He is alive," she said. "I do not know how, but he is alive." "Will he walk again?" The surgeon hesitated. "His spine is badly damaged. Even with the best treatments, the chances are low. Maybe 20%. And his lungs are failing. He will need machine support for the rest of his life." "How long will that be?" "Years, maybe. If he is lucky. If he is not—" She did not finish the sentence. Hyun nodded slowly. "Can I see him?" "He is not awake yet. The anesthesia—" "I will wait." Hyun sat beside Day's bed in the recovery room. The machines around them beeped steadily. Oxygen pumped into Day's lungs through a tube. IV lines carried medicine and nutrients into his veins. He looked small lying there, broken and held together by technology, but his heart kept beating. Hours passed. Other visitors came. Wu arrived first, still in his combat armor. He had a new scar across his face from the final battle. He looked at Day and said nothing, just sat on the other side of the bed and waited. Ari came next. She had completed the mission, planted the beacon, and survived. But her eyes were haunted. She had left her sergeant behind to die. That was not something you forgave yourself for easily. "He is going to be okay," Hyun told her. "The doctors say—" "He broke his back for me," Ari interrupted. Her voice was hollow. "He cannot walk anymore because he saved my life." "That was his choice. It should have been my choice, too. I should have stayed with him. If you had stayed, the mission would have failed. Thousands more soldiers would have died. Day knew that. That is why he ordered you to go." Ari sat down heavily. "How does he do it? How does he keep sacrificing himself?" Hyun thought about the story Day had told him, about the uncle who broke his back saving miners, about choosing other people's lives over your own body. "I think it is just who he is," Hyun said quietly. Day woke up 3 days later. His eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the light. For a moment, he looked confused. Then he saw Hyun sitting beside him and seemed to understand where he was. "Did they complete the mission?" His voice was barely a whisper, rough from the breathing tube. "Yes," Hyun said. "The beacon was planted. The citadel fell. The war is over." Day closed his eyes briefly. "Good. How are you feeling?" Day tried to move his legs. Nothing happened. He tried again. Still nothing. His face showed no emotion, but Hyun saw his hands grip the bed sheets. "I am—" Day started, then stopped. For the first time in 3 years, he could not say he was fine, because he was not fine. His back was broken, his legs did not work, his lungs were failing. He would never fight again, never walk again. Maybe never leave this hospital bed. I am... He tried again. Hyun leaned forward. You do not have to say it. Yes, I do. Dae looked at his friend. I am... finished. No, you are alive. That is what matters. I cannot fight any more. The war is over. You do not need to fight. Dae was quiet for a long time. Then he said, I do not know how to do anything else. That was the truth of it. For 3 years, Dae had been a soldier. He had broken himself 17 times for the mission, for the people behind him, for the idea that his pain mattered less than their lives. Now the war was over, and he did not know who he was supposed to be. The recovery was slow. Physical therapy helped, but not much. Dae regained some feeling in his legs, but not enough to walk. The best he could do was move them slightly. The doctors fitted him with a wheelchair and taught him how to use it. He hated it at first, hated being weak, hated needing help, but slowly he accepted it. This was his body now. This was what 17 breaks looked like. 6 months after the war ended, Coalition Command contacted him. They wanted to create a new training program, something to teach soldiers about endurance and sacrifice. They wanted Dae to help design it. Why me? Dae asked Major Hyun, who had delivered the message. Because you embody what they want to teach. How to keep going when everything says to stop. How to find strength when your body has none left. I am not strong. I am just stubborn. Sometimes they are the same thing. Dae accepted the position. He could not fight anymore, but he could teach. He worked with training instructors across the coalition, helping them understand what it meant to truly endure. Not the absence of pain, but the choice to continue despite it. The training program was named the Dae Protocol. It did not teach soldiers to break themselves. Instead, it taught them to understand their limits and then decide what to do when they reach those limits. Fight or retreat. Endure or rest. There was no shame in either choice, but the choice had to be conscious, made with clear eyes and full understanding. Young soldiers came from across the galaxy to train under his program. They would visit Dae in his office, this quiet man in a wheelchair with scars covering his body. They would ask him questions about war and sacrifice and pain, and he would answer honestly. He never pretended it was easy. Never said the pain did not matter. He just explained that sometimes something mattered more than the pain. And that was when you kept going. Ari became one of the head instructors. She had left the military after the war, unable to shake the guilt of leaving Dae behind. But he had called her personally and asked her to come back, told her that his sacrifice only mattered if she lived the life he had bought for her. She could not honor his choice by drowning in guilt, so she came back. And she taught new soldiers how to fight smart, how to survive, how to complete the mission without breaking themselves unnecessarily. Wu stayed in the military and eventually became a commander. He visited Dae often, bringing stories from the field, telling him about soldiers who had been saved by the training protocols. Lives that continued because of lessons learned. You are still fighting, Wu said one day, just with a different weapon now. Dae smiled slightly. I am not fighting anything anymore. No? Then what do you call what you do? Teaching. You are teaching soldiers to endure, to survive, to keep their squads alive. That is fighting, Dae. It just looks different now. 5 years after the war ended, the coalition built a memorial. The Hall of Heroes, they called it. It honored soldiers from every species who had given everything for the cause. At the center of the hall stood a statue. It was Dae. They had captured him perfectly, standing despite the scars, eyes calm and clear, his body showing the marks of 17 breaks, but his posture showing the strength that kept him moving forward anyway. At the base of the statue were words. They asked him how he kept going. He said he was fine. They asked him if it hurt. He said yes. They asked him why he continued. He said because someone had to. This is what it means to endure. Dae attended the unveiling in his wheelchair. Thousands of soldiers came to honor him, generals and privates, humans and aliens, everyone who had fought in the war or been saved by his training programs. They asked him to give a speech. He did not want to, but Major Hyun, now a general, insisted. So Day rolled up to the podium and looked out at the crowd. So many faces, so many lives that had continued because he had chosen to break instead. "I am not a hero," he said. His voice was still quiet, still rough from the lung damage. But the crowd was silent, listening. "Heroes are people who do impossible things. I just did what needed to be done. Anyone could have done the same." "But we did not," someone shouted from the crowd. "You did." Day paused. "Yes, I did. But not because I was special, because I understood something simple. Pain is temporary, death is permanent. But what we do for each other, that lasts. That matters. I broke 17 times so others would not have to break at all. That was worth it. That is always worth it." He looked at the statue of himself. "You built this to remember me. But I want you to remember something else. Remember what it means to choose. Choose your battles. Choose your sacrifices. Choose what is worth breaking for. And when you make that choice, commit to it completely. That is all I ever did. That is all any soldier can do." The crowd erupted in cheers. Day sat there, uncomfortable with the attention but accepting it because it was part of his duty now, to be a symbol, to represent something larger than himself. After the ceremony, he sat alone in front of the statue for a while. Ari found him there. "Are you okay?" she asked. Day looked up at her and smiled. For the first time in years, the smile reached his eyes. "Yes," he said. "I actually am." And he was. His body was broken. He would never walk without help, never fight again, never be the soldier he once was, but he was at peace. He had given everything he had to give, and it had mattered. People lived because he had broken. Children had fathers. Families had futures. The galaxy was at peace. That was fine. That was more than fine. Years later, when trainers across the coalition taught new recruits, they would tell them about Sergeant Day, the human who lived through 17 breaks and kept going, who suffered more than most people could imagine and called it fine, who gave everything so others could have something. And those recruits would learn that being unbreakable was not about never breaking. It was about choosing what to break for. It was about deciding that some things, some people, some missions were worth the pain. That was the human way. That was Day's legacy. Not that humans could not be broken, but that they chose to break for things that mattered. And then they kept going anyway, one step at a time, until the mission was complete, or their body finally gave out. Usually the mission came first. That was what made them terrifying. That was what made them heroes. That was what the galaxy learned from one quiet soldier who responded to every injury, every break, every impossible demand with the same calm words, "I am fine," and meant it.